In 2016, the Orioles were in Toronto playing a one-game wildcard play-in. Buck Showalter didn't bring in Zach Britton. Edwin Encarnacion hits a walk-off homer, and the Orioles season was over, and their window had closed. They had rose back to relevance in 2012, making the playoffs 3 times in 5 years. But after 2016, it was time to tear it all down. They lost 87 games in 2017, 115 in 2018, 108 in 2019, finished 25-35 in the COVID-shortened season, and picked up right where they left off in 2021, 52 and 110. Buck Showalter left after the 115-loss 2018 season, and Brandon Hyde took over a ship that had completely sunk. But in the background, they were doing what had to be done to rise back to the top, and all things considered, it was a quick turnaround. Today, let's look at how the Orioles went from 100 losses to 100 wins in just 2 years. 2016 was over, they lost Matt Wieters, but that was the only major roster loss of the year. In the draft, they didn't get anyone who panned out. The only name that stands out is Logan Allen, taken in the 16th round, and he just made his debut with Cleveland this past year. They may have struck out in this draft, but they already had guys in their system that would play a key role later. In 2014, they used an 11th round pick on left-handed pitcher John Means. In 2015, their first round pick was on a guy named Ryan Mountcastle. And then, in the 13th round, they got a future All-Star in Cedric Mullins. In 2016, their 3rd round pick also gave them another All-Star, Austin Hayes. Outside the first-year player draft, they were very successful. In the Rule 5 draft, they picked up Anthony Santander, making his debut in 2017. They also signed Felix Bautista to a minor league deal, letting him develop all the way until 2022. In 2018, they had one of the worst records in baseball history, and at the deadline, they went into full rebuild mode. Kevin Gausman was sent to the Braves along with Darren O'Day, getting back Bruce Zimmerman and Evan Phillips. He wouldn't pan out with the Orioles, but the Dodgers have brought out the best in him. This was a missed opportunity for the Orioles. Zach Britton was sent to the Yankees, bringing back Dylan Tate. The biggest trade was Manny Machado going to the Dodgers, getting back several players, the most significant one being Dean Kramer. Finally, they sent Jonathan Scope to the Brewers, getting back Jonathan VR, having a good season in 2019, but nothing beyond that. In the 2018 draft, they used the number 11 overall pick on Grayson Rodriguez, supposed to be the ace of the future. That horrendous 2018 season may have cost them Buck Showalter, but it got them the top pick in the draft, and they had a franchise-style player waiting for them. The Golden Spikes Award winner, the catcher out of Oregon State, Adley Rutschman. They weren't done yet. Their next pick was a high school shortstop out of Alabama, Gunnar Henderson. Then, just to round it out, they got an outfielder from Stanford named Kyle Stowers. These guys would all play a major role later, but couldn't help the Orioles in 2019, and they lost 108 games. One overlooked move came in the 2019 offseason, sending Dylan Bundy to the Angels for 4 prospects. Bundy was coming off an average season of 30 starts and a 4.79 ERA, but the Angels were willing to send over a pretty good haul to get him. The biggest piece of that trade being Kyle Bradish, a 4th round pick in the 2018 draft and would go on to finish top 4 for the Cy Young. Their awful 2019 season got them the 2nd pick in the 2020 draft, and they got Arkansas superstar Heston Kjerstad, using their 2nd pick for Jordan Westburg, both guys shooting up the ranks and making their major league debuts in 2023. Even faster than these guys was their 2nd round pick in 2021, number 5 overall, the outfielder from Sam Houston State, Colton Cowser. He would also see some big league action in 2023. One overlooked move from the 2020 season, the Orioles claimed Jorge Lopez off waivers, coming off one bad outing in Kansas City, and the Orioles found themselves a new starter. That 2021 season was yet another sad one for the Orioles. At this point, they had a lot of their pieces in place, but they were all still very young. Mountcastle at first, he was 24. Hayes in left, he was 25. Mullins in center, he was 26. Santander in right, he was also 26. And Trey Mancini as the DH, he was the old man of the core, an 8th round draft pick back in 2013, coming back to the majors after missing 2020 battling colon cancer. On the mound, John Means was still their ace, a 3.62 ERA over 26 starts, but the rest of the staff was rough. Matt Harvey was brought in before the season, and he made 28 starts but had a 6.27 ERA. Jorge Lopez was no better, 25 starts and a 6.07 ERA, being moved to the bullpen. Bruce Zimmerman had an ERA over 5. Keegan Aiken's ERA was over 6, and Dean Kramer's ERA was over 7. They had a team ERA of 5.84, the worst starting staff, the worst bullpen. The next worst team being the other team with 110 losses, the Diamondbacks, and their team ERA was 73 points better at 5.11. If you're just looking at the American League, The Orioles' ERA was a full run higher than the next worst team, the Twins, at 4.83. There was one positive thing that happened to their pitching staff in 2021, and that was claiming Cionel Perez off waivers, having a 6.38 ERA with the Reds. Their offense wasn't quite as putrid, scoring 659 runs. That was fifth to last in baseball. The only AL team that was worse was the Rangers. This team blew 52 leads, only had 24 comeback wins, 13-24 in one-run games, and 13-44 in blowouts. There wasn't much reason to be optimistic going into 2022. Their preseason over-under was 62.5. That was 10 games better than 2021, but it still put them on the cusp of 100 losses. They started just as you would expect, losing 24 of the first 40 games, sitting 8 games under 500, but on May 21st, they determined it was time to start a new era, bringing up the new face of their franchise, Adley Rutschman. The next night, the Orioles pulled off a miraculous win. Austin Hayes driving in the tying runs with 2 outs in the ninth, and Rougned Odor hit this chopper that scored the winning run. They hit the road, winning 3 out of 5 in Boston, winning 4 of 7 on the next road trip to Kansas City and Toronto, and the wins just kept rolling in. 2 out of 3 against Tampa, 3 out of 4 in Chicago, and on the 4th of July weekend, they launched a 10-game winning streak. That included 3 walk-off wins, and that pushed their record over 500, 45-44. They were in the thick of the AL wildcard race going into late July, but instead of going all in and going for broke, management stayed the course and kept the game plan. This team was not supposed to be winning yet, so they traded a key bat and a key arm. Trey Mancini was sent to the Astros, leaving the team with a .268 average and .751 OPS, bringing in a pair of pitchers. Seth Johnson, their new number 15 prospect, and Chase McDermott, their new number 10 prospect. They also traded Jorge Lopez, terrible as a starter, but masterful as the Orioles' new closer. 19 saves and a .168 ERA up to that point, sending him to the Twins and bringing back Juan Lopez, number 28 prospect Juan Nunez, and number 11 prospect Cade Povich. But more important for the short term, that trade included Yennier Cano. He didn't pitch much in 2022, but he was the man in 2023. After the deadline, the Orioles ran out 5 wins in a row, having an overall excellent August at 17-10, winning their first 3 games in September and going 10 games over 500, a game and a half out of a playoff spot. They got shut out at home against Oakland the next day, and that kicked off a 12-17 finish, 3 games away from the last playoff spot. Still, a miraculous 83-79 record for a team that was supposed to lose 100 games. Despite their disappointing finish, that last month saw the rise of their other star from the 2019 draft, the number 1 prospect in all of baseball, Gunnar Henderson. He had a .788 OPS in his 34 games to end the season, and he was set for a huge 2023. The Orioles won 31 more games from 2021 to 2022. Their offense had a slight improvement, 674 runs against 659, a 15-run jump. That was 10th in the AL and 20th in all of baseball. Adley Rutschman finished second for Rookie of the Year, an .806 OPS in 113 games. Anthony Santander went from 18 homers to 33, trying to make up for down production from Ryan Mountcastle and Cedric Mullins. The offense was almost a wash from 21 to 22, but the pitching proved to be the big difference. They were dead last and left way behind in 2021, but in 2022, they were middle of the pack. They had a team ERA of .397, bringing that down from .584 in 2021, almost a 2-run difference, 9th in the AL and 17th in baseball. The starters were a lot better, combining for a .435 ERA, still bottom 10 in baseball, but their starters' ERA were actually respectable. They brought in Jordan Lyles to eat innings, and he did. 32 starts, 179 innings, and a .442 ERA. Kyle Bradish made his debut with 23 starts and a .490 ERA. Tyler Wells had 23 starts and a .425 ERA. And they got very good seasons from Austin Voth and Dean Kramer. Voth only making 17 starts but posting .304, and Kramer's 21 starts yielding .323. More impressive than their starters was their bullpen. A .349 ERA, third in all of baseball. A 3-headed monster that led the way. Dylan Tate and Keegan Aiken were very solid, but I'm talking about Cionel Perez, Jorge Lopez, and Felix Bautista. Perez appeared in 66 games and had a .140 ERA. Jorge Lopez flourished in his role as a closer, as I mentioned before, with a .168 ERA, and Felix Bautista was the new closer after the Lopez trade, a .219 ERA in 65 games. This team is loaded with good young talent and were clearly on the rise. Still, the odds makers did not believe they were ready for prime time. They were only given a 76.5 over-under, 14 games better than last year's, but 7 wins below their actual mark in 2022. They were quick to prove the doubters wrong. They ended April 19-9, 35-21 at the end of May, 48-32 after June, and on the heels of an 8-game winning streak that spanned over the All-Star break, they finally caught the Rays on July 19th, grabbing first place, 21 games over 500, and they had at least a piece of first place for the rest of the season. They had to play hard to hold off the Rays, finishing with 101 wins, winning the East by 2 games, having the best record in the American League and their best season since 1979. Their pitching had a 3.89 ERA, a slight improvement from 2022, but considering the whole league gave up way more runs in 2023 compared to 2022, that improvement put them in 7th place in all of baseball. Remember, just 2 years prior, they were in last place by a mile. They signed Cole Irvin from the A's to help their starting staff, but he didn't work out. He made 12 starts and had a 4.42 ERA. Kyle Gibson was this year's Jordan Lyles. He was brought on to eat innings, and he did. 192 over 33 starts, but his ERA of 4.73 wasn't very good. Grayson Rodriguez was brought up to make his debut, making 23 starts and finishing with a 4.35 ERA. Dean Kramer at 4.12, Tyler Wells at 3.64, and the biggest surprise of the year was Kyle Bradish, a 2.83 ERA over 30 starts and 4th place for the Cy Young. The Orioles pitching has become a strong point for the team, and their rebound has come without the services of John Means. The ace of their rebuild has only been able to make 6 starts over the last 2 years. In the bullpen, Cionel Perez wasn't as sharp, a 3.54 ERA over 65 games, but Danny Coulombe came up big, a 2.81 ERA over 61 games. Felix Bautista was the best closer in the league, 33 saves and a 1.48 ERA before he got hurt, and Yennier Cano made the All-Star team. That piece they got for Jorge Lopez the year prior, and he ended up with a 2.11 ERA. That bullpen had the 5th best ERA in baseball, 3.55. The offense also took off, going from 674 runs to 807. It was part of a league-wide wave, but they were still able to lift themselves to the number 7 spot in baseball. The offense was carried by Gunnar Henderson, Anthony Santander, and Adley Rutschman. Ryan Mountcastle and Austin Hayes improving year over year, and even got some miraculous production out of Aaron Hicks after the Yankees let him go. They ran into a buzzsaw in the eventual world champion Texas Rangers, and they had a quick dispatch from the playoffs. But this really isn't about that. Oriole fans should still be thrilled about this team. Their window is just now opening, and don't forget who's lingering in the minors as their number 1 overall pick in 2022, Jackson Holliday, and their depth of young players in the majors and minors should keep them in the mix for a long time. That is, as long as ownership plays ball. Their front office has done a great job getting the players. Now, it's all about keeping them, the way the Braves have done. The Angelos family has owned the team for 30 years, and they've indicated they don't want to offer big contracts to extend their stars. There has also been talks of selling the team, the Carlyle Group's David Rubenstein showing interest, so we'll see what happens there. But if the young stars walk away as fast as they're coming up, it could be tough to continue to restock the team and hit a home run on every draft pick. That's all I have for the Orioles. Let me know if you have anything else to add, or if you have any thoughts on the renaissance of this team. Before you go, don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new here and want to see more content like this, please give me a sub. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.